Welcome back, y'all, to In the Wild. I'm your host, Raysean, and Kitana is back joining us.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest with a very special set in a very special location. She is a content creator, author, performer, Jill of all trades, so to speak. And she is a visiting scholar with us this semester, and we are so happy to have her and talk to her a little bit about her experience. So give a warm Jaguar welcome to Latria Graham.
Hi, y'all.
How are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. There's a little bit of sun out today,
Yeah.
so I'm very happy. Winter is almost over. We survived the time change and all of that, so really, really happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be at Augusta University.
Yes, so diving right in, every writer, content creator has a memory where storytelling became really apparent or just like manifested in them. So my question to you is, when did that moment happen for you? Like, when did you realize that you were a storyteller?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think I always knew I was a storyteller because it was just in my blood. It's in the way that, like, even when you're like shelling peas on the porch with grandma, you know, she's talking to somebody and they're like, oh, this happened and this person's doing this, but this thing doesn't know. So I was ear hustling as a little kid, even when I'm supposed to be like, you know, taking the peas, and like we do this thing where you put them in a pillowcase and you bang them against the porch so that more of them fall out and they pick through the finer ones. And so I'm just kind of like sitting there, I'm like, oh, and you want to know what comes next, right? And so learning a little bit about that, but like I didn't understand that the storytelling techniques that my family had value until I went to college, until I encountered Zora Neale Hurston's work, both folklore and her anthropology work, and understood that those people talked like my people and they were important enough to be included in a book. This is something that I can think about doing with my family story, with my personal story, and then realizing that I could embrace living in the South. I tried everywhere. I went to Dartmouth because it was in New Hampshire and it was closer to the Canadian border. It was as far away as I could get from the farm. And I tried New York City after that, because that's where you go when you want to be an artist. And it wasn't until I came back to the South, back to home, that I understood the power I had and the way that I could tell stories that no one else was able to. So, I mean, knowing that I could do it started at 6 or 7. I didn't really get into it until I was about 25, 26, and really start trying to figure out how I could bring what I knew and understood about where I lived into the world.
And through that, you became an English professor. What would you say are some misconceptions that English professors get or deal with?
Often, I think, particularly from the student perspective, and I thought this when I was a student, that we are the source of all knowledge, right? That we have all of the answers, that we live on Pac-Man pellets, and like, this is like, you know, we sleep under our desks and things. No, I mean, in some sense, we have lived a life, hopefully, that has cultivated grace and empathy and compassion, and we bring that point of view to the work and engaging and giving you context to what, you know, students read, and when we engage with the community, what they read or how they interact with us. But yeah, it is one of those things that we have read every book in the literary canon and talk about it. And sometimes students will ask me a question and I won't know the answer. And I'm like, well, let's look at it together. Let me show you how to think. I think that's what I do well. Instead of like knowing all of the answers, let me tell you how I deduce how I got to this point. Let me give you some context about this point in history and why it's referred to this way. So we don't know it all. We're still trying to figure out. I think people think we're like, you know, at the top of what we do, but and some people may come with that ego, but I'm always curious, but I'm always on the edge of wondering, you know, have I done a good enough job with this? Like, is this close enough to perfect? Have I really articulated what I wanted to say? And so it feels like the moment I can rest on those laurels, it's probably time for me to like do something else.
So what has your experience been like at Augusta University?
Oh, this has been almost a healing experience because I've been so many other places. My last post before this was in Missoula, Montana. It snowed until June, right? And being from the South and liking the warmth, liking flowers are such a big part of my story. Nature is such a big part of my story. So being separated from that and not getting a true spring this year, it's come a little early, a little earlier than expected, but like, you know, getting to, you know, engage with the camellias, see the azaleas bloom and feel a little bit closer to home, closer to my family story, because my family is from Aiken. My mother's side is like Wagner, Aiken, South Carolina area. being able to do what I love. I love teaching students. And the fact that I'm able to engage with my colleagues and say, have you read this? And they tell me what they're reading or what they're working on. Writing, when I do it full time, which is my primary job, and then I teach usually one class a semester somewhere. Writing is lonely. And so being able to be in community this way is transformative. And so I've learned a lot while being here, and then the weather helps and having great students helps. So I'm very happy here right now.
So being from the South Carolina area, have you had a connection with the university before?
Yeah, so in early 2020, actually, Jim Miniak, who was in the English and World Languages department, actually brought me in as just a visiting writer, and I came and I held a workshop, and I did a reading later on in the day. So I had some experience with Augusta University before, and he's a great writer and has a new book coming out, even though he's no longer at the university. So I had that experience of meeting Dr. Williams, meeting some of the students here, like Christian Osborne. I still keep in contact with her. And so understanding how the university shaped their point of view and making sure that was a system that I wanted to be a part of. So before this, I'd had great experiences with Augusta University, and then having the opportunity to come back for a full semester, I said, let's do it.
So what do you think of the students? What was your impression of working with our students this semester?
So I'm still in the midst of it. And I wasn't sure how the writing section would go. So every week, often I think there's sort of theorem and practicum. And we talk about literature in theory, right? What we think the writer was doing. And I'm like, I want you to you're going to write every Friday. We're just going to do prompts. You are going to have to figure out, I was like, you don't have to share it with anyone, but I'm going to ask you questions and make prompts that hopefully will help you think about home without the nostalgia. Think about the landscape that you embody, right? The way your body takes up space so that you can value your voice and understand that your perspective does have worth. So that is something that I'm doing a little bit this semester, and just the stories that have come out of my students, the things that they trust me to hold when they're vulnerable and doing some of that writing. They're really insightful and witty, and there are things that they see, and again, because there's a little bit of a generation gap, I'm 36, most of my students, are ranging 18 to 21. There are things that they see or that they think about when they encounter a book, and we're reading mostly new books, things that have come out from 2020 to 2022. So we're all coming to this together, and I'm coming at it with my history and context and perspective, but they're also coming at it with some things that perhaps I don't understand, and it's a conversation every time that we enter that classroom and figure out how to talk about the book we read that week.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
So how do you decide to study and create work focusing on race, gender norms?
I often am writing about things that I'm curious about or things that I'm frustrated by, right? Like if I am sitting here with all of this, as my grandmother would call it, book learning, and I don't understand the who, what, when, where, and why of a situation, and why the situation is relevant now, that means that someone has not done the explanatory reporting, or they're not talking directly to sources about the thing that's affecting them. And I'm like, how can I come in, ask better questions, and help readers that may not have, this background that I have, understand what's going on there. And the other part of it is that I've seen myself erased from the narrative so many times. When we're talking about, my familial home where my parents live is in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's technically Appalachia. You don't see, Black people in Appalachia. We're kind of buried because of what the imagery, right, of this is meant to look like. And so it is like writing my way back from the margins in many ways. And I'm not the only Black woman or Black Southerner doing that. But saying, you think you know this place, but you have no idea. Right? These are all the things that you're missing, because it's easy to give into that stereotype, but think about all the invisible people that have to make the system work, and seeing myself as part of that, and understanding my role in that. So working through some of that, and I just find race and gender are the places that we are really missing those voices.
Have you ever received any backlash or bias from your published work?
Often. A lot. Anytime that you write about racism or sexism or even classism, right? Because I'm very much from a working class background, even though I went to an Ivy League university, and that gulf sort of in between, and the way that people look at you and what you actually are, that interior exterior rub, that tension is something that I focus on a lot in my writing, or like being Black and talking about mental health. Often people weaponize that and they're like, you are crazy, right? They try to flip that on you, and that hasn't stopped me from doing it. But understanding that if it's getting a reaction, that means that they read it and it made them feel something, right? Like they have to process it, even if it's hate, even if it's disdain or whatever. It has entered their world in a way that they're thinking about me and I may not be thinking about them, right? And so seeing that maybe it's progress. I understand that that's a really jilted way, but it's I can't stop writing my truth, and I can't stop writing the things that I'm curious about, but that is my way of being like, well, it shook something in them to the point where they felt like they needed to react to it.
So what is your publishing process like, and what inspires you?
I'm getting better at this, particularly now that things are a bit more beautiful outside and we've got a little bit more light. I thought I needed to sit behind a desk and write a lot of the time. And now I just take a notebook out with me, I go for a walk. I'm kind of letting things surface when my body gets into a space, and I'm like, what do I miss? What am I noticing, right now? What's changing? And thinking about those sorts of things, and eventually I'll come back to my desk. Sometimes I will have an idea and then I'll pitch a publication, or sometimes a publication will come to me and say, hey, we want a profile on this falconer. Is this something you're curious about? And I'll do a little bit of research, and I'll sort of write down my initial impressions and descriptions. And I'll say, okay, how do I think about scenes? Is there dialogue in this? How long do I have in terms of time? How long can I shadow this person? How long do I have to write this piece? I write longhand first, and then my editing process happens when I transpose it to a computer to show an editor. And then I often have a conversation with an editor. Sometimes they'll come back with edits, and then they'll figure out visuals for it and then make it out into the world.
Seeing that you come from a rural area and a family of farmers, how did they respond when you told them you wanted to be an artist and you wanted to write? Yeah,
they didn't really know what this was. So to give you some idea, my family got the newspaper for the coupons and to see who died. Like that is sort of how that went. If they were getting news, sometimes it was from television, but like they were not great like readers of hard news or anything like that. And my dad, my mom was an artist who ended up being a mail carrier. My dad is a practical farmer dude. He was like, if y'all want to be artists, I know I can't stop you, but you need to know how to feed yourselves. And so, he taught us, about farming. And he always was, he passed in 2013. He was kind of like, they're doing this thing, and you kind of have to go with it. But, my remaining family members are pretty proud of it, right? Picking up my magazine, talking about the stuff that I'm doing. Some of it is contentious when you write not always nice things about the dead, even though you're telling the truth. Everybody's had a grandparent sometimes that's mean. So there are those little touchy points. But overall, they see what I'm doing. They see that like our old ways are dying out. I'm the last farmer in my family, and they're like, at least what we have been through will be preserved in some way.
And last question, tell us about your upcoming workshop and where our listeners can go to learn more.
Okay, I will also have, my Instagram handle is Miss MS Latria, Latria Graham, Graham. And so some of that will be on social media, but on April 12th, I'm holding a workshop called Local Story, National News. And this is a little bit about how I broke into writing. It was through op-eds and things like that. And Georgia is really, it's an interesting time to be in Georgia. And I think for those that want to write and are trying to figure out how exactly to get their perspective into the newspaper or onto digital sites like The Guardian, y'all have a perspective that the rest of the country needs to understand on voting rights, on some of the legislation happening. So it's like, how do you take things that you're frustrated about or curious about, and then like hone it, make it timely, right, to the elections or to even education or something like that, and then get it out in front of an editor so that it can maybe make its way out into the world. So it's a short workshop sort of talking about how you do that, the questions that you ask, and that's on April 12th, and the English and World Languages Department will have information about how to join that either physically, or we also do a lot virtually on Teams.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I love talking to fellow artists, so I really appreciate getting to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you, and you have fantastic questions. So, yeah, thank you, thank you.
Hello, my name is Yamil Santana, and I'm a counselor here at Augusta University. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about student counseling and psychological services, also known as SCAPS. Our mission as SCAPS is to provide free and confidential mental health services for currently enrolled Augusta University students in a safe and inclusive environment. Our goal is to promote and preserve student wellness. We pursue our mission by delivering direct clinical care to students. In addition to brief therapy for individuals, group counseling, and crisis services, we also offer consultation, prevention, and outreach presentations. We also pride ourselves in our graduate level training program, which prepares future mental health professionals and supports Augusta University's academic mission. We provide all of these services through the highest standards of practice as guided by our professional and ethical codes of conduct. We help students better understand themselves, others, and the world around them so that they can make intentional and informed choices that facilitate wellness. You may be wondering what are some of the concerns that bring students to SCAPS. Truth is, we see students for an extensive variety of concerns such as anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, and loneliness, among many other concerns. If you're wondering if your concerns are valid or if they could be addressed by working with a mental health professional, then please consider giving us a call. Contacting SCAPS is a great first step in moving in a helpful direction. If we believe we're not the resource for you, we'll make sure to point you in the right direction. We encourage you to make taking care of your mental health a priority during your journey here at Augusta University, and we invite you to let us support you along the way. Thank you, and may you be well.
Welcome back, y'all, to In the Wild. I am your host, Raysean, and joining me are some very innovative folks. We have just wrapped up the 2023 AU Innovate competition, and we're here with two of the winners of that group and the Director of Innovation for the Georgia Cyber Center, Dr. Lindsay Steinberg. How's it going, y'all?
It's going good.
All right, so I guess just getting us started, Madison, why don't you tell us a little bit about your thoughts of the competition this year?
Yeah, so we actually got introduced to the competition as part of one of our courses at Medical College of Georgia. Everybody came and presented, told us a little bit about the Innovate project. And the past couple of years, y'all had done more sort of medically related challenges with COVID-19 and also redesigning a colostomy bag. So we were kind of coming in thinking, oh, we're going to have like sort of medical challenge. All right, great. And then y'all mentioned that this was innovation for nonprofits, and we were kind of like, oh, that's a big challenge, something that we've kind of never tackled before. So kind of coming in, I feel like I was a little intimidated about, I've never really worked with nonprofits outside of volunteering. So I was kind of like, how are we going to come up with something, to help our nonprofits here in Augusta? So, but we were very excited to kind of come up with a project.
That's great. Lindsay, how was this year's competition different from last year's?
Yeah, certainly. So last year's competition was actually focused on any problem in the community that you wanted to solve. And this year, like Madison was talking about, we are focusing on nonprofits. And so it really evolves as we see challenges in our local community. In terms of excitement and engagement, it just keeps growing. So we were integrated into the U+ curriculum this year, and it is a model competition that we can put into any course. So if there is a challenge for a faculty who says that they want to engage their students more, this is an ideal formula of how you can do that. And putting a pitch competition in your class, bring that challenge to us, and we can definitely help you solve that. And as we move forward, what is it going to look like in the future? So next year, I'm really excited that we're going to start a pathway for entrepreneurship and innovation in our Certificate of Leadership program. So it'll be a Certificate of Leadership with a pathway in entrepreneurship.
That's really amazing. And I guess kind of going off of that, what type of work goes into planning a competition like this? Because we had over 30, almost 40 groups participate.
Right. Let's go back really quick to the beginning, right? How does anything start? It starts small with some proof of concept. In the very beginning, I met a little girl named Emma who had a colostomy bag, and Emma would grab her side and run out of the room. And her parents told us Emma's story, who she had lived with 8 years and through her entire childhood with a colostomy bag. And telling students that story, you can really see how one patient versus 300,000 patients, how you have the opportunity to change so many people's lives. And you can do it with an idea. And so going around and continuing to inspire our students that they can change our community and our patients' lives really has been that spark. So this little piece, the story in the beginning, has grown from 30 students to 340, and it keeps getting bigger.
That's amazing. What does it feel like to see your idea just kind of blossom and just expand exponentially like this?
I think what I appreciate the most and what I love the most, what continues to drive me forward, is when I get to speak to students after the competition and hearing them say the recognition and the drive that sometimes they had no idea they could get up in front of a room and do this, that it awakens something, and that I didn't realize I could utilize this idea in other ways. I can pitch now in a job. I can pitch to a coworker if I have an idea, maybe in the workplace in the future. So this becomes an element for so many different pathways forward.
Caleb, tell us about your group's project and how did it all come together?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a student in our group, Eden Mahoney, who was sort of the initiator of this, who had some experience working with the foster care system. And she noticed that there's a need sometimes whenever a child has to be placed in a home immediately. There's not a lot of resources that comes with that child. Sometimes they'll come in with just the clothes on their back, and they're worrying about what they're going to wear tomorrow, or if they're going to make it to school, or if they have a book or a toy that's a favorite of theirs. So what we wanted to do was find a way to get some essential items for children of all ages that might be rapidly placed to a foster care system into a book bag that could be grabbed by the foster care parent, by the official, whatever it may be, and go with them, so that they didn't feel like they were moving into a new place entirely alone, that they had some things to comfort them and to sort of ease that transition into a really scary part of life.
What was it like, I guess, working with your group? You had a pretty large group. So what does that process look like as medical students? I'm sure y'all are pretty busy in class and other things. So what was that experience like for y'all?
We work with an incredibly talented and caring population of students at the Medical College of Georgia, which is, one of the defining reasons, and really a reason that many of us chose to matriculate here. The culture is just different. There's a true culture of compassion and sincerity, of people who actually want to help, and not just to help in the abstract for some mark on your CV, but to actually do something in the community, to see something through, like we plan to do with this project, to actually see it through and make sure that it's funded and it's actually, taking root in the system. So just intentionality by really good students who really have a heart for care, even outside of the hospital.
So going into the competition, how confident were y'all about presenting? Were you nervous? Were you just feeling that you were going to definitely place? Like, what were your thoughts before you presented?
We challenged our group when we began this. It began as a requirement for a class. And we told ourselves that if we made it to the end, we were going to see it through and we were going to take the prize home. And that's what we did. We poured some, really a lot of hours into this. Madison gets a lot of credit for all the work she did. I just stood up there and held the mic today. So just a great team effort. And we enjoyed working with each other. It was fun to get to bond with each other and really learn more about each other in the process.
Yeah, what about you, Madison? Were you surprised at all? Were you nervous? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I was genuinely kind of surprised because I think we felt very good, like Caleb said, about our project, and we had a great team working, but working with our classmates and seeing all of their projects and some of the projects that we saw today, I kind of felt like I got a little more nervous, and I thought, oh no, we're not taking a prize home, because so many people had so many good ideas. We're very appreciative and very grateful that we did place, but yeah, I was so impressed with all of the presentations and all of the projects that we were shown today.
Yeah, there were a lot of just talented groups from, I guess, for all 10 of the presentations that we saw. Lindsay, what did you think of the winners' projects?
I'm continually impressed by all of our student ideas every year, and I never can guess which team is going to win. I remove myself from judging because I invest in their ideas already as it is, and show such genuine care in wanting to support all of you for student success that when 36 teams and over 300 students every year submit ideas, I want all of them to be successful. So I truly believe in our student success and want to see ideas become a reality. So imagine if this could somehow evolve into a pathway where your ideas become a reality and then start filling in like small businesses downtown where those empty buildings are, or start to really help support our community if they got to be turned into real ideas. And like you said, we were in this and we were going to really drive it home. And even you had talked about getting the funding and support to make your idea a reality. That can happen. It absolutely can, because the judges believed that your idea was something that is feasible, right? So I see all of these opportunities, and it's just, for me, a way to connect all the pieces together. And so for me, it drives me, and it really brings joy to my life.
So if you had to have one hope or one wish for next year's competition, what would you wish for?
Oh my gosh. One wish? I only get one. I would want everybody to work together to solve problems.
That's awesome. And what part of this year's event in particular makes you the most proud?
I think in this new role that I have the opportunity to bring so many pieces together that maybe I have not been able to before. And that looks like a piece maybe downtown, where now we can bring in community partnerships, whether that could be the Georgia Cyber Innovation Training Center, where we can now bring in partnerships where Augusta Tech can join into the conversation. Imagine a place where, as in getting your awards, you also can get small business development awards. And then it becomes a cycle of growth into a place where a small business development center could provide opportunities for you to truly explore, to take your idea to a reality. And so that's what I mean, where I think there are opportunities with all of ideas, because there are 36 teams who submitted an idea, right? And we had top 10 teams who get to present for those awards, but I want to help and provide an opportunity for them to have their ideas come to fruition.
Speaking of coming to fruition, do y'all foresee your project coming to fruition? Do you have plans to continue that?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a couple contacts, not only at DFACS, the Department for Family and Child Services, but also with several other nonprofits in the Augusta area like Safe Kids that we've actually talked to. And DFACS has really expressed genuinely wanting to take this project off the ground, because they've actually opened a space particularly for this type of idea. So I definitely foresee it in the future.
I'm excited to see what happens with that. And I guess last question to wrap up here, Lindsay, can you tell our listeners and watchers where to go to learn more about this year's competition and where to go if they want to support next year's competition?
Yeah, absolutely. So feedback from last year was students wanted social media accounts for all of our innovation competitions. So we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get on Twitter a little bit more. I'm trying, but there's a whole new opportunity with the team here to help support some of these roles and initiatives. So right now we're on augusta.edu/innovation/innovate for all of our previous year competitions, and you can see all of our winning teams. For the future, that's a good question. There's going to be some new developments there, maybe some new resources where there will be a hub for all of this to live.
That's awesome. Looking forward to see it. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bethany, and I'm excited to share with you about the Center for Writing Excellence at Augusta University. The CWE is here to assist you with all things related to writing, speaking, and composing. We help with any kind of paper, ranging from your first year English composition essays to lab reports. We also help with speeches and presentations for classes or outside events like conferences. Finally, we can also support you as you draft and revise multimodal assignments. These include things like PowerPoints, infographics, research posters, videos, podcasts, and more. You can come to the CWE for help at any stage in the composing process. We think some of the most productive appointments happen when students come before they've even started. During brainstorming sessions, we can review your assignment requirements, make sure you understand them, and then come up with a plan for drafting and completing the project. We provide feedback on drafts, help you with revisions, and help you understand professor feedback. Wherever you are in your process, we're here to help. So how does all this work? It's pretty easy. The CWE is completely free to students, and you can book up to 1 appointment per day during your time at AU. Sessions are typically one-on-one and last about 45 minutes. You can come see us in person or online. For online sessions, you can do a live video chat or opt to get written feedback from a consultant. The CWE is staffed by friendly peer consultants, mostly made up of AU undergraduates who have received training in the discipline of writing. We also have consultants who work with our graduate and professional students, as well as AU faculty and staff. The CWE is located on the Somerville campus in Algood Hall and on Health Sciences campus in Greenblatt Library. And of course, you can also meet with us online from wherever you're at. Learn more about the CWE on our website listed on the screen and follow us on Instagram at AUG_CWE. We can't wait to work with you and wish you the best on your AU journey.